Hello, this is Rich, and today I'm going to be doing a tutorial on jointed breakables. Before I did a tutorial on procedural destruction. This did not allow for pieces to fall to the ground, and I'm reading here from Sava or Sava from the CryDev forums here that he wants a tutorial on breakable objects, specifically where objects pieces fall off, such as concrete barrier. This is achieved with jointed breakables. So we're going to get started. I'm going to open up 3D Studio Max 2012 version to get started. All right, here we go. During this tutorial, there's a couple of naming conventions that need to take place in order for jointed breakables to work. This is something like you need to have joints connecting pieces together, either to other pieces or to the world, jointing them. These joints need to be have a special naming convention. You also need to make use of the UDP properties in order to make jointed breakables work as well. And we're going to go through all of that and also importing into Cryengine and destroying this object. 3D Studio Max is open, and we're going to be closing out of any startup scripts that you have here. I'm going to go right into the perspective viewport. Okay, to get started, we're going to make a very simple box object, and then we have to split this object into multiple pieces. So I'm going to go into the roll-up bar, the Create tab, and just create a simple box. Go ahead and turn on snapping if you wish, and just create a simple box here. Just like this. Okay, we're going to right-click on this object and go ahead and convert it to an editable poly. And we're going to have to break this object up into multiple pieces. Because this is going to be a relatively quick tutorial, relative to my other ones, we're just going to break this up into a few simple pieces, not a lot. There's multiple ways to do this. I think there's two that I use. Before, basically, I used the, from the Create tab, I used the compound objects to create the Pro Cutter to cut these up manually. That's to get more specific shapes. You can use this method, Pro Cutter, to get more specific shapes. There's also another, it is a, from the SDK.crydev.net, where you have the tutorial on jointed breakables. They also explain that there's a tool that's used to automatically split this up. So I'm going to go through both aspects of doing this, automatic through script, and also through, if you don't have the script, whether it's compatible with your version or not. We're going to be going over the manual way to do it. That way all versions of 3D Studio Max will be able to complete this. Okay, so let's get started. Firstly, we're going to be using the manual type to split this up into different objects. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the cutting object, the object that's going to be cutting this box right here. So all I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go right into the standard primitives and create a plane. Then I'm going to grab this plane and make it big enough so it's long enough to cut through the entire object. So I think that's about right. Make sure it's bigger than the actual object. Go ahead and right click it and then convert it to an editable poly as well. From here, we're going to bring this object, turn off snapping to allow bringing it up in the z-axis here. And we're going to cut this object by rotating and moving until you have the direct cut you want. Where this plane intersects from the object is going to where it's going to be creating the multiple object. As in, if I used a Pro Cutter tool right now, this part of the object here and this part of the object here would become two different objects. So if I place after I cut this, if I place this object into the level, when you shoot it, it's going to break into two different pieces. This piece here and this piece here. So we're going to do a little bit more than that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to duplicate this cutter piece here, and I'm just going to hold shift and bring this up to duplicate it, and I'm going to make a copy. Make sure it's not instance or reference. Make sure it's a copy, and just make one copy here. Okay, this should already be an editable poly. If not, go ahead and create an editable poly by right clicking and convert to editable poly. Go ahead and bring this down as well so we can make multiple cuts. I think this is okay. We'll turn it into 4 different pieces. As you can see, we have 1 here, 2 here, 3 here, 4 there. Okay, while this is selected, this cutter piece here is selected, make sure 1 is. You can choose whatever piece you want, but make sure it's one of the cutter pieces that you've designated here. And go ahead into the Create tab and go to Compound Objects, Once we've gone to the compound objects, go ahead and click Pro Cutter with the object selected, not your box, but the cutter pieces. And you're going to want to go ahead and click turn on stock outside cutter, also stock inside cutter. Don't worry about cutter outside stock, just leave that at default here. Everything else should be at default, and go ahead and click cutter objects. And because we've already used the Pro Cutter tool while this object was selected, this was automatically added to the cutter tool, and you can see that here, plane 001. These are the objects that are part of the cutting operation. So it won't let you select this, so go ahead and select the other one. You've now added 2 different planes that are going to cut this object. Go ahead now to the pick stock objects and pick the object that you want to be broken into pieces, and that's going to be this one here. So go ahead and click. Alright, it doesn't look like anything was done and the cutter pieces have disappeared, but what actually happened here, we're going to uncheck pick stock objects and go right into the modifier tab so we can get rid of all of the operation. And I'm going to show you what this has done here. This box object is now 4 different objects. You can click here and oops. It should have been 4 different objects. Hold on. Hold on here a second. Okay. This didn't work here, so we're going to try this again. We're going to delete this. We're going to go into Create tab. Make sure that we're in standard primitives. Go ahead and create a box. Go ahead and turn on snapping if you wish. I do. Get a nice even box. Bring that up. Okay. Go ahead into the modifier tab. This time, I'm not going to convert this to an editable poly to see if that works here. Go into the Create tab. Go and create a plane. Go ahead and make a plane bigger than the object. Bring this plane up to cut through the oops. Turn off snapping again to allow Z-axis. And go ahead and rotate this object. And then I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this by holding the Shift key and dragging in one of the widgets, X, Y, or Z. Copy. And I'm going to rotate this in the opposite direction. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to head to the roll-up bar, Create tab, go to Compound Objects. Go ahead and click on Pro Cutter. Go ahead and pick Cutter Objects and click this as well. Make sure Stock Inside Cutter is also enabled up in the cutting options and the parameters. That allows both objects to be selected here. Auto extract mesh. I don't know if this needs to be enabled, but let's try that here. Auto extract mesh. Go ahead and pick stock objects and click this as well. It's now created the 4 cuts. Go ahead and just hit the delete key because the cutter objects are selected, and that will allow you to delete those cutter objects. And if I'm not mistaken, this should work. If not, I'll feel really, really embarrassed. Yeah, didn't work as well again. I'm just hitting Control Z to get back these objects here. Go back in the Modifier tab under Pro Cutter. Go ahead and push Explode by Elements, and let's try this again here. Okay, I believe that worked here. So I think you're going to need to enable Auto Extract Mesh, retain original material, and go ahead and explode by elements. And that would, I think it would keep the same object, but just different elements. So, but let's try this. Go ahead and hit the delete key to delete that here. And there we go. We've now got 4 different objects. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Oops. 3 and 4. Also, what happens here, since we got this 4 different pieces here, I also think it keeps the actual whole original shape as a whole, but I think it hides that shape. So I think we're going to go into the select by name option, dialog box. Is just, you can click here. select by name. Go ahead and display all, and good, it hadn't created a whole one, so we're all good from here. Now this is what you're going to need to do. There are special naming conventions like I had let you guys know before, and this is how your pieces, your object needs to be named. There's going to be one piece or two pieces or how many pieces you want that are going to be the main mesh. This is the mesh that's going to remain, that's not going to be destroyable at all. Usually I just choose one piece here. So this piece, this blue piece, looks like a base piece that's not going to be able to be destroyed. This piece here, and this piece here are pieces that I want to actually fall off and be physicalized in the engine. So what we're going to do is this. First of all, we're going to select all these objects, and we're going to go ahead to the Utilities tab and go ahead to the Reset X forms. We're going to reset selected. You can see all the bounding boxes are now corrected in that object. They're more like the way they're supposed to be. Go ahead into the Collapse tab and collapse in the Utilities tab, and go ahead and click Multiple Objects, and go ahead, output type, go to Mesh, and just push Collapse Selected. This is going to collapse every mesh that you have selected, you know, the modifier list, and that's what we want here, because we don't have to select every single object each individually and collapse each one. That's just a faster way to do this, and this is in the Collapse Utilities panel here. Make sure Multiple Objects is selected when you have these. Okay. I'm going to click one of the objects here, and I'm going to go to the modifier tab, and you can see that there's no Reset X Forms modifier, because that collapse tool took care of that. Alright, so this is the main main mesh, and this does need to have a specific naming convention, and what this is going to be is, I've actually written a text file that outlines it, because it's a lot of steps that you have to remember, and sometimes it's really hard to remember it by heart. So I'm just going to minimize this, and I have a folder here called text, and let's see, yeah, Cryengine Instructable Guidelines. I've written this up here as a general guidelines in case I forget, like I have. Okay, so the main mesh needs to be named. X stands for whatever you want to call the mesh. So in this case, we're just going to call it box, and then it needs to have the underscore main as a suffix. This is very important, otherwise it will not work. So the part you do not want to be structurable, you need to have the name you want to call it, and then it needs to have underscore main. So capitalization is important as well. So we're going to jump right back into 3D Studio Max and go ahead and select this object here, and we're going to name this accordingly. So we're just going to call this box underscore main, and that's what we're going to need to do. For all the pieces that you actually want to be destroyable, you know, falling to the ground and be able to break off, you're going to need to name them accordingly as well. These do need a special naming convention. So what we're going to do here is we're also going to refer back to our text document that I've created here. The pieces need to be named X underscore part XX. What the first X stands for is it needs to be the exact same name as your main mesh, as in we chose to call our main mesh box underscore main. So each piece needs to be named box, exactly how we spelt our main mesh, box underscore part, and this X's here stand for 01, 02, 03, 04, and so on. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go jump back into 3D Studio Max once again and name this accordingly. We're going to name this box underscore part 01. We're going to name this second part here box underscore 02. We're going to name this one here box underscore box underscore part 03, and I believe, yeah, box underscore part 02. So we have box part 1, box underscore part 2, box underscore part 3. Again, these ones are going to be the breakable pieces that are going to fall off. Okay, now we need to, as well, to make them breakable, is we need to set up joints. And what these joints do is basically bind each part either to another part or to the world. So we're going to go ahead and create dummies in 3D Studio Max. This is a way to create joints. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to go to the Create tab, and we're going to go to the Helpers helpers tab under the create, and go to standard, and you're going to see the dummy right here. It's very, very important. When you create these dummies, you cannot scale them or rotate them. They're only allowed to be moved, and that's one of the rules. So dummies can only, once you create them like this, you can just click and drag. You cannot rotate or scale them, otherwise it will mess up. The destructible asset that you've created. So once we've gone ahead and created that, we need 4 pieces. We need a joint for each individual piece, the main mesh as well as each pieces. So if you had 10 different pieces, including the main mesh, you'd make 10 different dummy objects. Once I've done this, I'm just going to click Shift, drag in the Y to create 3 more, because I have 4 pieces. Make sure it's copy, not instance. Copy needs to be selected, and go ahead and just click 3, number of copies. It's going to go ahead and create 3 more. So we now have 4 pieces. So we're going to click on this piece here, and we're just going to drag it. And in order for this to work, these dummy objects need to intersect your object in nothing. One side needs to be intersecting in just a single object. The dummy cannot be attached to more than 2 objects. So if I had this dummy between this one and this one here, what this would let me know is that this object here and this object here are connected to each other. And it cannot be 3, it cannot include 3, as in it is not okay and will not work if this object is, let's say, intersecting 3 or 4 different objects. This will not work as well. It needs to be either connecting this object to the world, or this object to this object, or this object to this object. It can only be intersecting 2 at a time, either 2 as in the object in the world, or 2 as in the object in another object. So I like to create typically just my objects connecting to the world. You can get some different results on how they break in the hierarchy by connecting them to each other, but for simplicity's sake, I just connect them with the world. And remember, they can only be connected, it has to intersect just like this. It can't be like this or all like this. It has to be intersecting with the object in the world. This connects this object to the world. Go ahead and continue on and connect these other pieces, and just like this, intersecting one object with the world. This basically, joints connect an object to something. That's what joints do. And I'm going to go ahead and create one for the bottom. This is important here. For your main part, which is usually the part that connects to the world, as in, it's a good choice to make your main mesh, the one that remains, one that's actually setting on the ground, because what this essentially enables is when you put this helper or the joint at the bottom of your main mesh, what this is doing is it's actually connecting this base piece to your terrain, because when your terrain is on the ground, let's say you have or a floor or something that's actually going to be, box is going to be set on, this helper here is actually going to be connecting the piece to the actual terrain. So this piece here would not move at all, because it's actually connecting itself to the terrain. Because if you just visualize for a minute, this piece is intersecting this, and once this is on something, this is also going to be intersecting with whatever's below it. This allows this piece to actually maintain in the same place, which is good. So I've gone ahead and I've connected that and jointed it to the world. And there's one piece left, and this is going to be this object right here. It doesn't matter where you place it in the respects of, right now this joint is connecting to this green piece here. If I had the object connecting to the green piece, let's say right here, it doesn't really matter. Or let's say I had this piece on the corner. It doesn't matter. As long as it's connecting that piece to the world or to another object is okay. So I'm going to go ahead and just because this is how I do things, I just connect it to the biggest open face here. And I'm going to connect that right there. So all of our joints are in place. They're connecting each object to the world. This is essential. This is needed. You need to have a joint for every single piece, including the main mesh. No meshes can go without a joint being attached to them. The next step is, this is an important step as well, we need to go over the parenting or the hierarchy setup. This is very, very important. It will not work without this. First of all, this is how things need to be put into place for the parenting and hierarchy. Go ahead and graph editors up on top, and go ahead and click new schematic view. This is going to open up a schematic view where you can plan your plan in your parenting to other objects. Okay, so what needs to happen here is first of all, we need to create another dummy here, and this is going to be what we use to export the object. So go ahead and create another dummy. Just create it any size you want. Cannot be rotated or scaled. Again, only moved. Now that I've created that, we're going to name this what we want to call our object in the game. So when you know what we want to call it in the game. So I'm going to name this, let's say, JB for jointed breakable underscore box. Jointed breakable box. This naming convention isn't important on this export helper right here. This is just what the object is going to be called, and I put JB because it lets me know it's a jointed breakable and it's a box here. So I'm going to go ahead and name that jointed breakable box. I'm going to click this. I'm going to right click on the selected move, and I'm going to just right click on X, Y, and Z on these arrows here to bring it to the world coordinate 0, 0, 0, X, Y, Z, 0, 0, 0. Okay, now that the helper is at 0, 0, 0, I'm going to go ahead and select everything in the entire world, except for the export helper. All 4 parts, every single joint, and I didn't set the export helper. You can set multiple objects by holding the control key while you click. And I'm going to go ahead and group, and I'm going to go ahead and group them all together. And we're going to just go to default name, group 1. The reason why I do this is because I want to move all these pieces to world coordinate 0, 0, 0 as well. And it's just easier to group everything you want to move and go ahead and just go to 0, 0, 0. So now that I've grouped everything, I'm going to right click here, and I'm just going to right click on these and bringing everything to the 0, 0, 0 world coordinate. It might be a good idea to, after you group everything, go to the hierarchy tab and go to effect pivot only and center to object. Then you can go ahead and actually right click here and make sure that everything is on 0, 0, 0. Everything's all set. My entire object is now at 0, 0, 0, which is what you want. My export helper is also at 0, 0, 0. Everything is still intact with itself. So we're going to go ahead and make sure we go to group and ungroup everything again. Now everything's going to be its own object. This is very, very important as well. So now we're going to go into the graph editors and head right into the schematic view that we've created, and that's just going to graph editors, save schematic view. This tab only gives you an option here once you've already gone and created a new schematic view, and I've gone ahead and done that. Okay, now for the linking and parenting. This is very important. This is your export. This is your export helper right here, JB box, and dummy objects are highlighted in green pretty much always. So you know green is your export helper, JB box. So this is what we're actually going to be exporting when we export through the Cryengine settings, and we're going to want to link all the dummies. All the dummies are going to be linked right to the JB box, and we're going to go ahead and do that by just clicking on this link tab, taking dummy 01. Yeah, dummy 01, dummy 02. Well, first of all, we're going to make sure we're in the hierarchy mode and not the reference mode. Go to hierarchy mode. Go ahead to dummy 03, link it to the JB box, and then dummy 04. So now all of the dummy helpers or the joints, these are actually joints, and I forgot to name these, and this is very important. Do not make the same mistake I did. This is dummy 1, dummy 2, dummy 3, dummy 4. These need to have a special naming convention. But let's just go ahead and finish the linking. Once we've taken all of the joints, joint 1, joint 2, joint 3, and joint 4, and linked it to the JB box, we're going to also take this, our main mesh, the part we do not want to be destructible, and this is denoted by the underscore main. Go ahead and take your underscore main object, in this case box main, and also link it to the JB box. Part 1, part 2, part 3, all different parts that you want to be destroyable need to be linked to the main mesh. So let's go ahead and take part 1, the part that actually is destructible, link it to the box main, part 3, box main. So let's just go on an overview here. We have all of the joints joints parented to the export helper JB box. And we also have our main mesh, the part that we do not want to be destructible, underscore main, whatever, underscore main, linked to the export helper as well. And then we have all of the pieces of that box linked to the main mesh. And you can see here, these arrows show you this one goes into this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. And then this one has its own set, 1, 2, 3. This is what you're going to want it to be. Obviously, your objects will be named differently than mine, but remember, all your joints are going to be to the export helper. All of your pieces are going to be parented to your main mesh, underscore main. Okay, now we got to take care of, now we got the parenting all set up. We're going to have to take care of the naming convention for these joints. This is what the joints need to be named. I'm going to select this joint here. It doesn't matter which one you select. Go ahead and name this what you're supposed to, and this is what you're supposed to name them. They have to start with a money symbol. So it's going to be money symbol joint, all lowercase, 0, 1. There we go. Money symbol joint 0, 1. There's no underscores in this at all. So go ahead and select the next one. Doesn't matter which one you select or what order you select them in, but the namings does need to be in order. So let's go ahead and do a money symbol here. JOINT 0, 2. Okay, go ahead and select the next one. Money symbol joint 0, 3. Go ahead here. Money symbol joint 0, 4. Now that the joints are named appropriately and the pieces in the main mesh are named appropriately, we can just jump back into the graph editor, go to Save Schematic View and select your schematic view. You can see that you don't need to reparent the joints. Even if you change the name, they maintain their parenting order. So there we go, everything's still parented. We got money symbol joint 02, 01, 03, 04. You can see that it's not 1, 2, 3, 4. This is fine, it doesn't matter the order. It just matters that these joints are actually placed, parented under the JB box, and the main mesh is parented under JB box, and the pieces that you want destroyable parented under your main mesh. Okay, there's just a couple more steps that we need to make this destructible. This is setting up the material, and also setting up your pivots. Pivots need to be put in a certain respect here, and this is also very, very important. So what's going to happen here is that your main mesh, you can see that the pivot is way over here. The pivots actually need to be all at 0, 0, 0. Every piece need to be at 0, 0, 0. The main mesh and then each of the pieces also need to be at 0, 0, 0. So let's go ahead and just select this piece. Select this piece. Just select the main mesh and the pieces. Don't select the joint or the export helper at all. Once you've done this, go ahead to the hierarchy tab. First of all, you should see that there's 4 objects selected. Like I said, just the main mesh and then the 3 pieces, or if you had 10 pieces, you'd say 10 or 11 there. So go ahead to the hierarchy, go to Effect Pivot Only, and make sure after you've done that, go to right click on this, select and move tool, and then right click on each individual X, Y, and Z. Right click on these names, and this should bring everything to 0, 0, 0. Go unclick Effect Pivot Only, and go ahead and click each individual object. You can now see that selecting each individual object, the pivot still remains at 0, 0, 0. This is the behavior that you want. Now for the joints. The joints actually can remain in the pivots where they are, as in each joint does not need to be at 0, 0, 0. The pivot needs to be in the middle of each joint, as you can see here. This is what needs to happen. The only pivots that need to be, the only mesh that needs to be at 0, 0, 0 is the main mesh, and then each individual piece. That's the only piece, that's only what needs to be at 0, 0, 0. Obviously the export helper as well, which we created, JB box. We've already set that at 0, 0, 0 previously. So now that this is all set, we can go ahead and set our material. So we can go ahead by this here, and we haven't created any physics proxies because I really don't like to, and this is a main mesh here. So I'm just going to use the actual mesh as its physics proxy, and we can do this by go ahead and making sure that it's not going to be a sub-object material. We're just creating one without a physics proxy. We're going to use the mesh as its own physics proxy. So go ahead and make sure this is Crytex shader. From here, make sure physicalize and default is on for this material, and this is going to be in control of what's creating its own physics proxy. We're not going to create one separately, and you can do that by physicalize and default. The name. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're not going to assign any textures to it. Let's just take this diffuse color and just set this at, like, let's say a red. You can pick whatever color you want. That's what the material color is going to be, like a reddish. From here, we're going to make sure that show shaded material in viewport is selected. Go ahead and select every object, the main mesh and all of its pieces, and go ahead and click assign materials to selection. You're going to see now that this whole object is using that material, and each individual piece is going to be its own physics proxy because we've enabled the physicalize and default. This is what we want. So now that we've done that, everything should be 100% to go because we've done this asset creation pretty well, and that's all that's needed. The last step is to be exporting, and I'm going to show you how to export and have everything work, including the materials. Okay, so what's going to happen is we're going to head on over. Actually, I've made a mistake. There isn't. There's still one more step to go through, and this is UDP Properties. This is going to let the engine know that the properties of this physical breakable, because these cannot be set inside of the engine. They need to be set inside the asset in 3D Studio Max or Maya, whatever one you use. But this is 3D Studio Max, so we're going to go ahead and create that for this program. Each individual joint needs to have a limit, as in when something hits this object, a bullet, a grenade or a car or anything hits this object, it needs to know how much damage or stress that it can take before that piece breaks off. And so what we need to do is we need to set that, how much stress can it take before this piece breaks off. Like if a car hit it here or a bullet hit it right here on this part of the object, because this object part of the object this piece is connected to this joint. This joint, if it reaches a certain point, it'll break this piece off. So let's go ahead and take care of that. So what we're going to do is we're going to select each joint here, and there's 4 joints, so let's just click 4 joints. And we'll go ahead and right click on one of the joints and open up Object Properties. Because we have 4 selected, it's going to allow us to edit all 4 at the same time. So once you've opened Object Properties, go to User Defined, and this is where you set how much, and a good default value for testing if it's breakable, and you can change it later on back in your 3D Studio Max application. Go ahead and set limit, and this is all lowercase. Limit equals 500, and this is a good default value for testing. And like I said, you can change this. The higher you have it, the less likely it is to break off, or the more stress it needs for it to break off. The less you put it, it's pretty much you just tap it and it breaks off. So 500 is a good amount. After you put limit equals 500, you're all set for the joints. Now if you go and click each joint individually, you're going to see limit equals 500. Let's go ahead and select this other joint here, just to make sure and to show you that selecting all 4 and editing once updates all of the joints. Okay, limit for 500. Everything's fine. You can tell that the rest of them are going to have the same. Let's go to this one. Object Properties, there we go. So there we go. Now that the joints are set, we need to set UDP properties for the pieces and the main mesh. Every single piece in the main mesh, they need to have the properties set. So because the main mesh needs to have different UDP properties than the actual pieces, you're going to want to go ahead and make sure that you just edit the main mesh first to get their properties out of the way. Then you can actually go ahead and select every single piece to edit all at once to save some time. So once I've selected the main mesh, and this is box main, I'm going to go ahead and right click Object Properties, User Defined. This one needs to have entity entity under it. That's all. Entity. No equals for nothing, just entity. And what this does is it allows the object, once it's destroyed, it allows the object to not fade away. Sometimes there's optimizations used to, after a piece is broken, let's say after 20 seconds, the pieces disappear to save on memory and physics calculations. So entity allows it to never fade away, and this is what we're going to want for this main mesh here. Also, we're going to need to set a mass, and what mass is a fancy way of calling weight. If you use pounds, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 pounds depending. So I'm guessing this box, this piece of the box is going to say 5 pounds, but Cryengine measures in kilograms, and you could basically think of kilograms as double what pounds are. So let's say if you want to work with pounds, if you're American, then basically let's say you want it to weigh 5 pounds. You're going to want to choose 10. Mass equals 10. This says 5 pounds, so it's basically double. So if you want 40 pounds, you're going to choose 80. You know what I'm saying? That's half. That's how it works. Basically the rough conversion rate. So set it. So you need entity and then mass. And go ahead and just click OK. Now that we've got the main mesh taken care of, we can go ahead and select I'm going to go to Viewport Properties and go ahead and turn on edge faces because I need to see it. Okay, good. 1, 2, 3. Let's see, that's the main. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. I'm just selecting the different pieces. I'm going to right click to edit all at once. And again, user defined. Go ahead and just put mass equals, let's set them all at like, I don't know, 10 as well, 5 pounds. It does not need entity, it's fine. Mass equals 10. I have made a mistake under this main mesh. Under the main mesh, mass equals 10 is not okay. It needs to be mass equals 0. That should be fine. So under the main mesh, it's entity, mass equals 0. Under the rest of the pieces, you just type in mass and what you want their mass to be. So everything else is perfectly fine. We've gone through everything, and that's all that needs to be done. Now we can go ahead and start in the export process. I'm going to go ahead and save my object here, or my max file, where I'm actually going to be exporting it. And I'm going to go ahead and export it into my root Cryengine directory. Let's go ahead and just go to the Cryengine directory. Mine's on desktop, current Cryengine. You're in the right folder by game, engine, bin32, bin64, engine. This is where you need to be, wherever you've extracted the build of Cryengine. Go ahead into the game. You can put it anywhere you want. Make sure it's in game. I've gone ahead and created my files where all my files are. I'm going to go to objects. I'm going to go to breakables. And I'm going to go to JB box. I've already had my own box that I've created before, so I'm just going to overwrite this JB box. I'm going to go ahead and save it. Yep. So now that I've saved it, I'm able to export. So what's going to happen here is I'm going to go to the Utilities tab, Cryengine Exporter, and like I said, we created an export helper. This allows us to export everything by just one simple little helper. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go to the Select by Name option, which is right here, and you are going to find the JB box. This is our export helper. Go ahead and double click it to select it, and go ahead and add selected. That's just one simple name. Now, the material, in order for it to work, you do need to name your material, which is right here, the home, the base material, the parent material. Because if you had a sub-object material, you'd name the home piece, home material, the base parent material, whatever your object is named, so JB box. So what we're going to do here is make sure, because this is the parent material because it's not a sub-object, we're going to name this JB underscore box. It needs to be exactly the same as what you're exporting. JB underscore box is your CGF file, so that needs to be exactly the same. All capitalization is important. Well, not all caps, but capitalization is important. Once we've gone ahead and done that, we can go ahead and export nodes. No, I clicked no because I forgot here. Make sure export file per node is on, otherwise it won't export everything. It'll just export this little dummy. It won't export the objects or everything. So it's important to make sure export file per node is on and merge all nodes is off. Once you've done that, make sure it's a CFG. Go ahead and export nodes. The following file already exists, JB underscore box CGF. As you can see, this is a CGF file. It's JB box. That's what we named our material. Very, very important. go ahead and overwrite it. You won't have this object hopefully, and you can just save it, but I had it already, so I just overwritten it. That's fine. Once I've done that, exported my object, I'm just going to basically go to create material. This is a from max to, so it's going to create a material from here and bring it over to Cryengine. So right now it's going to be opening up my Cryengine. I'm just going to log right in. Once it's opened this here, I didn't previously have Cryengine open, so it opened up the material editor only. It didn't actually open up the engine, just the material editor. Once it's done this, I'm going to go ahead and create material again. It's going to allow me to save that material. This material does need to be named the same exact as your object, JB_box, which is the name of the